Running a hotel wasn't just my career, it was my entire world. My name's Philippa, and this hotel was my life until one day, he walked through the doors. He stood out instantly, a young man dressed in a suit that screamed money. His attention was glued to an expensive phone, but when he smiled, it was the kind that could make anyone stop in their tracks. "Good evening, I'm Algot," he said, his voice as smooth as silk. "I'll be here for a couple of nights. Is there anything interesting going on around here?" I couldn't help but smile back, a bit thrown off by his charm. "Well, Algot, this city's got its fair share of surprises. It just depends on what you're in the mood for," I replied, handing him his room key. Our conversation was short, but something about it stuck with me. Maybe it was his curiosity, or maybe it was how genuinely interested he seemed while I talked. He didn't stay long, but when he checked out, he left a note. It read, "Enjoyed our conversation. How about continuing it over dinner? Asterisk." I hesitated for a moment. I wasn't used to mixing my professional and personal life, but there was something about him, something that made me want to see where this could go. So, we met at a small local restaurant, the kind of cozy place where the chatter and clinking glasses made the rest of the world seem far away. "You've really got this hotel thing down, don't you, Philippa?" Algot said with a grin as we sat down. I laughed, feeling strangely comfortable. "I guess you could say I've had a bit of practice." Dinner passed by in a blur. We talked about everything and nothing, and he was an open book, or at least, that's how he seemed. He shared stories about his travels and investments, and when the conversation shifted to me, I found myself opening up in ways I hadn't in a long time. I talked about losing my parents, how it's been just my sister Clara and me since I was 22. "That's a heavy burden to carry, Philippa." "You must be incredibly strong," he said, his eyes filled with a mix of admiration and something else I couldn't quite figure out. I shrugged, trying to brush off the compliment. "We all deal with what we're given, right? Clara's my main focus. Our parents left us a little something, and I've been careful with it, growing it bit by bit." Algot nodded, looking thoughtful. "That's really impressive. You've got a good head on your shoulders." As the night went on, I realized I hadn't laughed this much in years. But when I tried to learn more about him, especially about his family, he skillfully dodged the topic. "My parents and I don't exactly see things the same way," he said, his expression darkening for just a second. "Let's just say they have their ideas about life, and I've got mine." I didn't push any further. After all, everyone has their own story and their own scars. But as the night came to an end, I found myself wishing it wouldn't. There was something about Algot that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. Being with Algot felt like a whirlwind. Each day brought a new adventure, and every moment we spent together was filled with laughter and dreams of the future. He had a way of making the ordinary feel extraordinary, turning simple meals into unforgettable evenings. "Algot, I still can't believe how quickly everything's happening," I said one evening as we sat in our favorite little cafe, the one with the dim lighting and intimate corners. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Philippa, when something feels this right, why wait? I've never been more sure about anything in my life." I looked into his eyes, feeling a swirl of emotions inside me. "I know, it's just everything's moving so fast. It's a lot to take in." He squeezed my hand gently. "I understand. But trust me, Philippa. I'm in this for the long haul. I want to build a future with you, and I want to start by making our wedding day the most unforgettable day of our lives." The way he talked about our wedding, with such excitement and certainty, it was hard not to get swept up in his vision. He painted a picture of a day so perfect, it almost took my breath away. "Imagine it, Philippa, a ceremony no one will forget, a true celebration of our love. It's going to be perfect," he said, his voice full of enthusiasm. "And the honeymoon? You mentioned something about the most luxurious hotel in the world," I asked, half curious and half anxious. His grin widened. "Yes, it's all part of the plan. But I need you to trust me. Let's do this together. Your savings for the wedding, my funds for the honeymoon, and our future home. We'll make this dream a reality." I hesitated. The logical part of me was screaming to be cautious. But looking into his eyes, so full of love and promise. I couldn't help but nod. Okay, Algot, let's do it. Let's make this wedding a day to remember. As the weeks passed, planning for the wedding took over everything. Algot was a man of action, handling every detail to make sure our day would be nothing short of spectacular. Watching him so full of energy and dedication, I couldn't help but fall even deeper for him. Algot, you're incredible. The way you're managing everything, I don't even know how to thank you. I told him one evening as we looked over the guest list and the extravagant menu he had planned. He pulled me into his arms, holding me close. Philippa, seeing you happy is all the thanks I need. I needed this wedding. To me, it was more than just a ceremony. It was the start of something beautiful, the beginning of our life together. But even with all the excitement, there were quiet moments when doubt would creep in, whispering questions late at night. Was I rushing into things? Was I just getting swept up in the romance? Every time those thoughts surfaced, Algot's reassurances were always there to calm my fears. His promises and comforting words became my anchor, steadying me in the storm of uncertainty. Planning the wedding took up every minute of my days, but despite the whirlwind of cake tastings and floral arrangements, I knew I needed my sister, Clara, by my side. Ever since we lost our parents, it had been the two of us against the world. Her opinion mattered more to me than anyone else's, especially now. I called her up, hoping she could escape from her job at the cafe for a little while. Hey Clara, any chance you can ditch the aprons and the smell of coffee for a few hours of satin and tulle? I joked, my voice full of hope. Clara's familiar laugh echoed through the phone. For you, sis, I'll trade coffee stains for wedding gowns any day. Give me an hour to wrap up here, and I'm all yours. The bridal shop was a dream, racks of white and ivory dresses spilling over like waterfalls of lace and silk. As I tried on gowns, Clara's presence was the calm I needed in the storm of satin and sequins. That one, Philippa. It's like it was made for you, Clara said, her eyes lighting up as I stepped out of the dressing room in a dress that felt like the one. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. The gown fit perfectly, hugging every curve and flowing philippaefully to the floor in soft waves of fabric. You think so? I don't know, do I really look like a bride? I asked, a smile slowly spreading across my face. Clara's grin mirrored mine, but for just a second, I saw a shadow flicker across her face, quick, troubling, and gone before I could ask about it. Before I could even speak, she had already grabbed another dress off the rack. Mind if I try one on? Just for fun, she said, holding up a gorgeous gown that shimmered as it caught the light. I laughed, surprised by the moment. Are you planning on eloping, Clara? Or is there a mystery man you've been hiding from me? Clara's laughter was usually light and carefree, but today, it sounded different, like there was something underneath the surface. Oh, Philippa, you know me. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But a girl can dream, right? She said, but her eyes quickly darted away, as if hiding something. The rest of the day was filled with laughter and whispers of silk, but I couldn't help noticing that Clara's mood kept shifting. Her usual bubbly self seemed clouded by moments of distraction. Everything okay, Clara? You seem a little off today, I asked softly, concern creeping into my voice. She brushed it off with a wave of her hand, giving me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It's nothing really, just the usual chaos at the cafe. You know how it is, she replied. But as we left the bridal shop, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was an unspoken tension between us, a weight I didn't know how to address. I wanted to believe it was just pre-wedding stress or maybe a tough day at work, but deep down, my gut told me there was more to it. That night, as I lay in bed, the excitement of finding the perfect wedding dress was overshadowed by my growing worry about Clara. She had always been an open book to me, but now it felt like there were pages she was keeping hidden. And as the wedding day drew closer, the joy I should have been feeling was tinged with a sense of unease I couldn't quite shake. Clara and I had always faced everything together, but now it felt like there was a gap between us, one filled with secrets and unasked questions. Little did I know that the answers to those questions would soon flip my entire world upside down. It started like any other day. I was tidying up the apartment when I noticed Algot had left his phone on the kitchen counter, buzzing with notifications. I didn't think much of it at first, but the constant buzzing nagged at me. It was unlike him to leave it unlocked, but I figured he must have been in a hurry. Without really thinking, I picked it up, and what I saw next shattered my world. The messages between Algot and Clara hit me like a punch to the gut. Every word felt like a betrayal, tearing through my heart. It wasn't just an affair. They were planning to push me out, to discard me like I meant nothing. All those years of sisterhood, all those moments we shared, suddenly felt like a lie. My eyes blurred with tears as I read and reread Clara's message, where she confessed that she was pregnant with Algot's child. Asterisk can't believe we pulled this off. She's such a fool for falling for every lie. And now, with the baby, we can finally be together, just like we planned. Asterisk. The world seemed to spin around me as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. And Algot's response? It was no better. He declared his love for Clara and his excitement to see me humiliated, kicked out of my own wedding. Asterisk, she's just a naive cash cow. Can't wait to get rid of her and start our real life together. This wedding will be perfect, thanks to her money. Asterisk. I sat there, the phone feeling heavy in my hand, my heart shattered. A storm of emotions raged inside me. Anger, hurt, disbelief. But underneath it all, a cold determination began to rise. They thought they could use me, discard me like I was nothing. They had no idea who they were dealing with. When Algot came home, his casual attitude was like salt in the wound. "Hey babe, did I miss any important calls?" he asked, picking up his phone without a second thought. I forced a smile, my insides boiling with anger. "Nope, just the usual stuff. Busy day," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the storm raging inside. He flashed that same charming smile, the one I now knew was just a mask. "Nothing's more important than coming back to you," he said, leaning in for a kiss. I had to force myself not to recoil. From that moment on, I played the part of the oblivious fiancé perfectly. I smiled, nodded, and continued with the wedding plans, but behind the scenes, I was plotting. Planning my revenge on the two people who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Each passing day became a test of my will, a balancing act between the role I had to play and the fury that burned inside me. But I wouldn't let them see me break. I'd bide my time. When the moment was right, they'd learn the true cost of their treachery. As I lay in bed each night, images of Algot and Clara's deceitful faces etched themselves into my mind. I made a silent vow. They would pay for what they had done, and their twisted game would be their undoing. I was no longer the jilted fiancé. I had become the architect of their downfall. My revenge would be meticulous, calculated, and oh, so sweet. The days leading up to the wedding felt surreal. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Flowers, guest lists, the dress. But underneath the facade was a storm brewing inside me. Algot, as always, was his charming, affectionate self, blissfully unaware of the tempest he was about to walk into. "Philippa, everything's coming together beautifully. This wedding is going to be the talk of the town," he said one evening as we reviewed the final preparations. I smiled, my practiced and polished expression concealing the fire within. "Yes, it's going to be a day to remember," I replied, the words laced with a meaning he couldn't possibly understand. Facing Clara was harder. The sister I had once loved and protected now felt like a stranger. Every word she spoke, every gesture she made, was a reminder of her betrayal. Yet I kept my mask firmly in place, playing the role of the loving sister, pretending to be blissfully ignorant of the knife she had planted in my back. "Philippa, you're handling everything so well. I don't know how you do it," Clara said one day as we finalized the seating arrangements. I forced a laugh, looking at the woman I once trusted. "Oh, Clara, you know me. Always had a knack for organizing chaos." The irony of my words wasn't lost on me. As the wedding day grew closer, the tension was almost unbearable, like a tightrope I walked with precision and care. Algot became more guarded with his phone, his conversations hushed and hurried. But it didn't matter. I had already seen enough. I knew enough. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, a beautiful day for a disaster. As I got ready, the reflection staring back at me in the mirror was that of a serene and poised bride. But beneath the veil and makeup was a woman on a mission, a woman who would no longer be a pawn in someone else's game. "Clara's running late, huh?" Algot remarked casually, adjusting his tie as we prepared to leave for the ceremony. I met his gaze in the mirror, giving nothing away. "Yes, but she'll be here. She wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, my voice carrying an edge of double meaning. He nodded, oblivious. "Well, she's always been a bit unpredictable, but today's about us, Philippa. Our new beginning." I turned to face him, a smile gracing my lips, perfectly composed. "Yes, Algot. A new beginning indeed," I said, my heart steeling itself for what was to come. As I walked down the aisle, the eyes of our friends and family upon me, I knew that this was it. The calm before the storm was over, and the reckoning was about to begin. The vows waited, the guests watched, and the stage was set. It was time for the truth to come crashing down, and for the real show to begin. Standing next to Algot in front of the folkie, my heart was a mix of emotions: hope, trepidation, and cold resolve. The words of the vows hung in the air, a promise of forever that was about to be shattered in the most brutal way. The guests, blissfully unaware of the storm about to break, smiled with joy and teary eyes, anticipating a beautiful union. And then the unimaginable happened. Clara, dressed in a bridal gown that eerily mirrored my own, stormed down the aisle. Her eyes locked onto mine, but there was no sisterly love in her gaze, only cold determination. "Move aside, Philippa," Clara declared, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "I'm the one who deserves to be here. Algot loves me, and this child I'm carrying is his." The room erupted in gasps and whispers as confusion spread among the guests like wildfire. Eyes darted between Clara and me, trying to make sense of the scene unraveling before them. But the real shock came from Algot. Instead of showing any remorse or surprise, he let out a hearty laugh, his true colors shining through the mask he had worn for so long. "Well said, Clara. Philippa, you've been a good host," he said with a cruel grin. It was in that moment that everything became crystal clear. This wasn't just about infidelity or betrayal. This was a calculated plan, a con. Algot and Clara had been playing me all along, using me as their pawn, thinking I would never catch on. They thought they had won, but they were wrong. "But this is where your part ends, Philippa. Why don't you join the audience? This is Clara's moment now," Algot sneered, his words dripping with mockery and contempt. The audacity of their betrayal, so public and so cruel, sent shockwaves through the crowd. But as the reality of the situation sank in, my reaction surprised everyone, including myself. I looked at Algot, then at Clara, and smiled. Of course. Why not? I wouldn't want to miss the show after all. "I did pay for it," I said, my voice calm, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. Clara and Algot exchanged confused glances, clearly not expecting such a composed response. The guests, too, were baffled, their eyes darting between us, trying to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before them. Philippa, I took a seat among the guests, my head held high. The whispers grew louder. Asterisk, what is she up to? Is she really going to let this happen? Asterisk, the questions buzzed around the room like a swarm of bees, but I remained serene, a statue amidst the chaos. Algot and Clara, now standing together at the altar, looked unnerved. My calm demeanor had thrown them off. Their plan to humiliate and discard me was not unfolding as they had anticipated. "What's your game, Philippa? Why are you so calm?" Algot asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and concern. I met his gaze, my smile never wavering. "No game, Algot. Just enjoying the fruits of my labor. Please proceed." "I'm eager to see how this plays out," I replied, my words a velvet-covered dagger. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. The guests watched with a mix of shock and anticipation, unsure if they were witnessing a wedding or the prelude to a dramatic reckoning. As Clara and Algot exchanged vows, the words felt hollow, a mockery of the sacred promise they were supposed to represent. And as I sat there, surrounded by friends and family struggling to comprehend the spectacle, I knew that this was just the beginning. The real show was yet to come. Clara and Algot, in their arrogance and deceit, had just secured front-row seats to their own downfall. When the Folkie asked if anyone objected, the doors burst open. A woman, older and more worn than Clara, stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. "Stop this wedding right now," she demanded, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Algot's face turned ashen, his eyes wide with shock. "Alva, what are you doing here?" he stammered, the mask of the perfect groom slipping away. Alva, Algot's legal wife, as I had discovered, marched up to the altar, her expression a mix of disgust and determination. "I'm here to stop you from making a bigger fool of yourself and these people." "Philippa, you deserve to know the truth," she said, turning to me with a sympathetic look. The guests murmured among themselves, the scandal unfolding before them more gripping than any soap opera. Clara clutched her stomach, her face a mask of shock and fear. Alva continued, her voice firm and clear. "Algot is a liar and a cheat. He's in debt up to his ears. His investments failed, and he's been using all of you to dig himself out of his hole. And Clara, you poor girl, you're just another pawn in his game." The room erupted into chaos, the guests rising from their seats as the whispers grew louder. Algot tried to speak, but his words were drowned out by the uproar. I stood up, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "There's more," I announced, silencing the room. "I hired a private detective after I discovered Algot and Clara's affair. Not only is Algot already married and drowning in debt, but he's also been hiding a daughter, a child he's never supported." Clara's face crumpled, the reality of her situation crashing down around her. "Algot, is this true? Tell me she's lying," she pleaded, her voice breaking. Algot, now pale and defeated, had no words. His lies, his deceit, all laid bare for the world to see. But the final blow was yet to come. As the guests processed the revelations, Algot's parents, two stern and imposing figures, entered the room. I had reached out to them, told them everything, and now they were here to confront the son who had brought shame to their name. Algot's father, a man of few words, spoke with a voice that resonated with disappointment and anger. "Algot, you are no son of mine. Your actions today and in the past have shown your true character. You are cut off from our family and our fortune." As the room settled into an uneasy silence, I looked at Algot, Clara, and the shattered dreams they had tried to build on a foundation of deceit. The pain of betrayal still throbbed in my heart, but standing there amidst the ruins of what was meant to be my happiest day, I knew that this was not the end of my story. In the aftermath, I found myself in the cold halls of justice, seeking reparation for the damage Algot had caused. The courtroom felt like another world, a place where the pain and humiliation I had endured were translated into legal jargon and paperwork. "Algot, you've not only broken a promise, but you've also shattered trust and exploited generosity. You owe me more than just an apology. You owe me compensation for turning my life upside down," I stated firmly, my voice echoing in the quiet courtroom. The judge's gavel sounded like thunder in the tense silence. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is hereby ordered to pay $100,000 in damages for the distress and financial loss caused," he declared, his words a balm to my wounded spirit. As I walked out of the courtroom, the burden of the past months felt lighter. Justice had been served, but the road to healing was just beginning. Algot's troubles didn't end with me. Alva, his legal wife, fueled by hurt and fury, launched her own legal battle, demanding compensation for his infidelity and neglect of their child. The once suave and confident man was now entangled in a web of his own making, his lies and deceit finally catching up to him. Clara, my sister, the person I had trusted and loved more than anyone, found herself alone and abandoned. Algot had fled the city, leaving her to face the consequences of their actions. She was pregnant and scared, a far cry from the carefree and happy girl she once was. Philippa, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, but I'm lost and I don't know what to do. Clara pleaded one day, her eyes filled with tears. I looked at her, the sister I once would have done anything for. Clara, you were my family, my blood. But what you did, it's not something I can just forget or forgive. You chose your path, and now you have to walk it, just like I'm walking mine. The distance between us was more than just physical. It was a chasm filled with betrayal and hurt, too wide and too deep to ever bridge again. Life moved on, but the scars of those tumultuous months remained. I focused on rebuilding my life, on finding peace in the simple things. I had loved and lost, trusted and been betrayed, but through it all, I had survived. And as I looked back on everything that had happened, I realized that the most important journey was the one I was taking within myself, a journey of healing, of rediscovering my strength, and of learning to trust and love again.